Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. Training camp began last week, and lots of moves happened around the league. With that said, we're going to talk about Deion Jones, Jarran Reed, JJ Wilcox, Michael Bennett, Alan Bailey, Mark Sanchez, Tyler Boyd, Holton Hill, Dean Lowry, Mike Daniels, Lance Kendricks, Taylor Lewan, Earl Mitchell, D'Angelo Henderson, Darren Sproles, Damontre Moore, Kevin Byard, Corey Coleman, Alan Hurns, Bobby Wagner, Niles, Golden Tate, AJ Green, and contract holdouts. So let's start with Deion Jones. Falcons are making big plans to keep their defensive weapons in place for the long term. After locking down Grady Jarrett to a new deal on July 15th, Atlanta doubled down on July 17th and signed linebacker Deion Jones to a 4-year extension. Jones signed a 4-year, $57 million contract with the Falcons, including an $11 million signing bonus, $34 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $14.25 million. The 24-year-old was drafted by Atlanta in the second round in 2016. He has spent his entire 3-year NFL career with the team. The Pro Bowler has played in 37 games, starting in all but 2, and has amassed 299 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 27 pass deflections, 8 interceptions, and 3 defensive touchdowns. Seahawks defensive tackle Jarran Reed will start the 2019 season away from Century Field. On July 22nd, the NFL announced that Reed's appeal of his 6-game suspension had been denied. The 26-year-old took to his Twitter shortly after the announcement to express his remorse. Reed was suspended for violation of the league's personal conduct policy for an incident that occurred in early 2017. The 6'3", 306-pound lineman will be able to practice and play through training camp and preseason, but won't be able to hit the field in the regular season until week 7 against the Ravens. JJ Wilcox's 2019 season ended before it even began. On July 22nd, the Falcons announced that the 28-year-old had torn his ACL during practice and would miss the entire season. Wilcox spent last season with the Colts and was brought in to compete for a reserve safety spot along with Sherrod Neesman, Chris Cooper, Jason Thompson, Ryan Neal, and Parker Baldwin. The injury makes it likely Wilcox will not make the team's final 53-man roster. Falcons defensive tackle Michael Bennett will not be on the field when the season opens for the team. On July 22nd, the team reported that the 26-year-old suffered a broken ankle during the first day of practice and would be out indefinitely. The team already lost 2 of their defensive players for the season. Defensive end Steven Means was lost to a torn Achilles during OTAs, and safety JJ Wilcox was lost to a torn ACL during the Falcons' first day of practice. Bennett was set to compete for a starting role this season, but those plans are on hold for the foreseeable future. Defensive end Alan Bailey has a new home for the 2019 season. On July 23rd, ESPN reported that the 30-year-old signed a 2-year, $10.5 million contract with the Atlanta Falcons, including $3.5 million guaranteed and an average annual salary of $5.25 million. The signing comes one day after safety JJ Wilcox and defensive end Michael Bennett were lost to injuries. Wilcox is out for the season with a torn ACL, while Bennett is out indefinitely with a broken foot. Bailey was drafted by the Chiefs in 2011 and spent the last 8 seasons with the team. During that time, he has amassed 207 tackles, 19.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 7 fumble recoveries. Mark Sanchez is calling it a career. On July 23rd, the New York Post reported that the 32-year-old was retiring from the NFL for a job as a college football analyst for ESPN. Sanchez was drafted in the first round by the New York Jets in 2009. He spent 5 years with the Jets, where he would lead the team to the playoffs in his first 2 seasons. His career took a nosedive, and eventually he was released in 2014. He would bounce around the league, spending time with the Eagles, Broncos, Cowboys, Bears, and Redskins. Sanchez will join Kevin Nagandi and John Vilma in studio, replacing Mac Brown, who left to coach North Carolina. Tyler Boyd is staying put in Cincinnati for 4 more years. On July 23rd, NFL Network reported that Boyd signed a 4-year, $43 million contract with the Bengals, including an average annual salary of $10.75 million. The 24-year-old was drafted in the second round by the Bengals in 2016. Since that time, he has played in 40 games, starting in 17, and amassed 152 receptions for 1,856 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. The new deal locks the veteran receiver in with the Bengals through the 2023 season. Holton will not be with the Vikings for the first half of the 2019 season. On July 23rd, ESPN reported that the 22-year-old cornerback was suspended an additional 4 games for violation of the league's substance abuse policy. Hill had previously received a 4-game suspension in April for violation of the league's use of performance-enhancing drugs. The additional suspension means the veteran defensive back will now be out for the first 8 games of the season. The 6'2", 196-pound defensive back was signed by the Vikings as an undrafted rookie free agent in 2018. He played in all 16 games for the team, where he amassed 36 tackles, 7 pass deflections, and 1 interception. He will be able to practice and play through training camp and preseason, but won't be available in the regular season until Week 9 against the Chiefs. Lowry is staying put in Green Bay for several more years. On July 23rd, the Packers announced a 25-year-old defensive end had signed a 3-year, $20.325 million contract extension with the team with an average annual salary of $6.775 million. Lowry was drafted by the Packers in the 4th round in 2016. Since that time, he has played in 47 games, starting 19, and amassed 85 tackles, 7 sacks, 6 pass deflections, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and 1 defensive touchdown. The new deal locks the veteran lineman in with the team through the 2022 season. Just 2 days after being released by the Packers, defensive tackle Mike Daniels has found a new team for the 2019 season. On July 24th, NFL Network reported that the Packers released the 30-year-old defensive tackle. On July 26th, ESPN reported that the 30-year-old veteran signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions worth up to $9.1 million with $7.8 million in guaranteed money. The 4th-round pick out of Iowa has spent his entire 7-year NFL career with the Packers before his release. In his 7-year NFL career, the 6', 291-pound lineman has amassed 225 tackles, 29 sacks, 5 pass deflections, 1 interception, and 2 forced fumbles. The addition of Daniels adds size and depth to a defense that finished 10th in total defense last season. It also keeps the Pro Bowler in the NFC North Division and facing his former team twice this season. The Patriots took a big move to beef up their pass-catching help this season. On July 24th, New England signed 31-year-old tight end Lance Kendricks. Kendricks spent the last 2 seasons with the Packers after spending the previous 6 seasons with the Rams. The 6'3", 250-pound pass catcher was drafted in the 2nd round by the Rams in 2011. In his 8-year NFL career, Kendricks has amassed 241 receptions for 2,505 receiving yards and 19 receiving touchdowns. Kendricks is replacing the spot left vacant after the retirement of Rob Gronkowski this offseason. Taylor Lewan will miss the first quarter of the 2019 season. On July 24th, the 28-year-old offensive tackle posted a video on his Twitter to announce his pending suspension for violation of the NFL's policy on the use of performance-enhancing drugs. A tearful Lewan said he was unaware that a banned substance, Osterin, was contained within supplements he had been taking for years and took a lie detector to prove his innocence. He apologized to the Tennessee Titans and their fans for the failed test and suspension. On Thursday, the veteran offensive lineman said he would appeal this suspension. Currently, the 6'7", 309-pound Pro Bowler will be available to practice and play through training camp and preseason, but won't be available to hit the field in the regular season until Week 5 versus Buffalo. Just ahead of training camp, the Seahawks made a move to shore up their defensive line. On July 24th, ESPN reported that Seattle signed defensive tackle Earl Mitchell. The signing comes just 1 day after defensive tackle Jarran was suspended the first 6 games of the 2019 season. Mitchell was drafted in the 3rd round by the Texans in 2010. He spent 4 years in Houston before signing with the Dolphins in 2014. He would spend 3 years in Miami before being released and being signed by the 49ers, where he spent the last 2 seasons. In his 9-year NFL career, the 31-year-old defensive lineman has played in 130 games and amassed 268 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 9 pass deflections. Vikings made some changes in their backfield before the start of training camp. On July 24th, NFL Network announced that Minnesota had claimed former Jets running back Henderson. The 26-year-old was drafted in the 6th round by the Broncos in 2017. He spent 1 season in Denver before being waived and being picked up by the Jets. He spent 1 season in New York before being released this offseason. Henderson has played in a total of 8 games in 2 seasons and has amassed 9 rushing attempts for 32 rushing yards, along with 9 receptions Vikings for 36 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Upon signing the veteran rusher, the Vikings released running back Rock Thomas. Thomas was suspended on July 23rd for the first 3 games of the 2019 season. Darren Sproles is back in Philadelphia for one final season. On July 24th, NFL Network announced that the Eagles signed the 36-year-old running back to a 1-year deal with a base value of $1.03 million with a $300,000 signing bonus and $600,000 of his base guaranteed. Sproles was drafted in the 4th round by the Chargers in 2005. The veteran rusher spent 6 years in San Diego before signing with the Saints in 2011. He spent 3 years in New Orleans before being traded to the Eagles in 2014. The Super Bowl 52 champion is a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, and holds the record for all-purpose yards in a season at 2,696 yards. In his 15-year NFL career, the 5'6", 185-pound Sproles has amassed 3,486 rushing yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, 4,816 receiving yards, 32 receiving touchdowns, 11,227 return yards, and 9 return touchdowns. Defensive end Damontre Moore is back in the NFL. On July 24th, Moore signed a 1-year, $805,000 contract with the San Francisco 49ers. The veteran defensive lineman last played for the San Diego Fleet of the Alliance of American Football until its collapse in April of this year. Moore was drafted in the 3rd round by the Giants in 2013. After 2 years in New York, the journeyman bounced around the league, spending time with the Dolphins, Seahawks, Cowboys, and Raiders. In his 6-year NFL career, the 26-year-old has amassed 82 tackles, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 4 pass deflections. Kevin Byard will be staying put in Tennessee for several more years. On July 24th, NFL Network announced Byard signed a 5-year, $70.5 million contract with Tennessee, including $31 million guaranteed and an average annual salary of $14.1 million. The 25-year-old was drafted in the 3rd round by the Titans in 2016 and has spent his entire 3-year NFL career with the team. The veteran safety is a Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro and was the interceptions co-leader in 2017. In his 3-year NFL career, the 5'11", 212-pound defensive back has amassed 235 tackles, 3 sacks, 28 pass deflections, 12 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. The new deal locks Byard in with the Titans through the 2025 season and makes him the highest paid safety in the league. Wide receiver Corey Coleman's 2019 season is over before it began. On Friday, ESPN reported that the 25-year-old had torn his ACL during Giants opening day training camp practice on Thursday and would be out for the season. The 5'11", 185-pound veteran was drafted in the 1st round by the Browns in 2016. After 2 seasons with the team, Coleman demanded a trade during training camp in 2018 and was shipped off to the Buffalo Bills that August. Bills would release him 1 month later. He was picked up by the Patriots, who cut him for Josh Gordon, re-signed him to their practice squad, and released him 9 days later. Giants would sign the young receiver to their practice squad 3 weeks later, and he would be activated to the active squad 6 days later. He would go on to play in 8 games for the team, starting in 1. With Odell Beckham traded to the Browns this offseason, Coleman was hoping to become a starter opposite Sterling Shepard this season. With Coleman now out, the team will look to Cody Latimer, Russell Shepard, or Benny Fowler to take over the number 2 spot. Just 1 week after being released by the Cowboys, Allen Hurns has found a new home for the 2019 season. On Friday, ESPN reported that the 27-year-old signed a 1-year deal with the Dolphins worth up to $3 million. Hurns was signed by the Jaguars as an undrafted rookie in 2014. He would spend 4 seasons in Jacksonville before being released by the team in March of 2018. He would be signed by the Cowboys to a 2-year deal just 3 days later. The veteran receiver would suffer a gruesome ankle injury in a playoff game versus the Seahawks in January that eventually led to the end of his time in Dallas. A Miami native, the signing returns Hurns to his hometown. He would join a team heavy at the receiver spot with Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, Albert Wilson, Bryce Butler, and Jakeem Grant all vying for a spot on the 53-man roster this season. Broncos have added another piece to their offense for the 2019 season. On Friday, NFL Network reported that Denver signed wide receiver Nick Williams to a one-year deal. The 28-year-old was signed as an undrafted rookie by the Redskins in 2013. Since that time, he has bounced around the league, spending time with the Falcons, Titans, and Rams. In his 6-year NFL career, the journeyman receiver has amassed 30 receptions for 280 yards, along with 235 return yards and 2 total touchdowns. The addition of Williams is a safety net since Broncos receivers Emmanuel Sanders, Deshaun Hamilton, and Juwan Winfrey all missed time last season with injuries. Just one day into training camp, the Seahawks have locked in one of their biggest defensive weapons. On Friday, ESPN reported that linebacker Bobby Wagner agreed to a 3-year, $54 million contract extension with the Seahawks, including $40.2 million guaranteed and an average annual salary of $18 million. In 2019, Wagner will earn a base salary of $10.5 million, a roster bonus of $937,500, and an incentive bonus of $1 million. The 29-year-old veteran was drafted in the second round by the Seahawks in 2012 and has been a mainstay of the defense ever since, playing a significant role in the dominance of the Legion of Boom in the early 2010s. The Super Bowl 48 champion has been a 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first-team All-Pro, and a 1-time second-team All-Pro. In his 7-year NFL career, Wagner has amassed 916 tackles, 16.5 sacks, 41 pass deflections, 9 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 defensive touchdowns. The new deal locks the 6-foot, 245-pound middle linebacker in with the Seahawks through the 2022 season. Niles is headed to the West Coast for the 2019 season. On Friday, NFL Network reported that the San Francisco 49ers were signing the tight end to a 1-year deal. The 29-year-old was drafted in the 5th round by the Redskins in 2011. He spent 7 injury-plagued seasons in Washington before being released and signing with the Jaguars in 2018. He would suffer an injury in Week 8 and be placed on injury reserve before being released in December of that year. In his 8-year NFL career, the 6'1", 242-pound veteran has amassed 78 receptions for 954 receiving yards, along with 814 return yards and 2 total touchdowns. Paul is expected to compete with Jalen Hurd and Caden Smith for a backup tight end position behind George Kittle and Garrett Selleck. New York Giants wide receiver Golden Tate is facing the possibility of starting the season away from the team. On Saturday, Tate took to his Twitter to announce that he was facing a 4-game suspension for violation of the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. In his post, the 30-year-old stated that the banned substance was contained within a fertility medication he was taking in April, and upon discovery, discontinued use and informed the NFL and the Giants. Unfortunately for the veteran receiver, this admission may not be enough to appease the league. The NFL has been strong in their stance that players must be consciously aware of the medications and supplements they ingest and if they are on the banned substance list. Tate has an appeal hearing scheduled for August 6th. He hopes for a resolution prior to the start of the season. Otherwise, Tate will not be available to play until Week 5. Bengals suffered a loss to their receiving corps just 2 days into their training camp. On Sunday, ESPN reported that wide receiver A.J. Green had suffered torn ligaments in his left ankle and would miss the next 6 to 8 weeks. The timetable means the veteran receiver will likely miss the season opener on September 8th. Green went down during practice on Saturday and had to be carted off the field. While the extent of the injury wasn't as severe as initially speculated, the missed time will put pressure on Tyler Boyd and Josh Malone at the start of the season. The 7-time Pro Bowler missed 7 games last season with the toe injury. Finally, let's talk about contract holdouts. With training camp underway, a few of the top offensive players around the league are holding out in search of bigger contracts with their teams. Most notably of these holdouts is Chargers running back Melvin Gordon, Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott, and Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas. Thomas is one of the top 5 wide receivers in yards, receptions, and touchdowns in the last few years and was set to make a paltry $1.148 million in 2019. The 2-time Pro Bowler has been a first-team team All-Pro, 2018 NFL receptions leader, and is Drew Brees' top target. He is 3 years into his 4-year rookie deal, but is searching for a 5-year deal in the $19 to $20 million a year range. Meanwhile, Melvin Gordon is at the end of his contract and is seeking a new deal in the range of $13 million a year over 3 years. At present, the Chargers are offering in the range of $8.25 million over 5 years. Gordon wants to be compensated along the lines of David Johnson, Todd Gurley, and Le'Veon Bell, and the dual threat back is worthy of that compensation. He is a 2-time Pro Bowler who has amassed over 3,600 rushing yards, 1,500 receiving yards, 28 rushing touchdowns, and 10 receiving touchdowns, and despite minor injuries over the past 4 years, has remained a consistent, reliable target for Phillip Rivers. Ezekiel Elliott, like Michael Thomas, is set to play on the final year of his rookie contract as well, and just like Thomas, he is holding out in hopes to receive a bigger deal this season. This situation is more complicated because the Cowboys have already picked up Elliott's 5th-year option and have to negotiate new contracts with quarterback Dak Prescott and wide receiver Amari Cooper before the start of next season. Elliott is looking for a new deal in the range of 4 years and $57 million. He is a 2-time Pro Bowler, a first-team All-Pro, a second-team All-Pro, and is a 2-time NFL rushing yards leader, so he is well deserving of the money. Now, there are fans of the NFL who side with the owners that believe players should honor their contracts with teams and shouldn't hold out for bigger paydays. The thing that these people don't take into consideration is that the average NFL career is approximately 3.5 years, meaning that before the end of most players' rookie contracts, they are already out of the league. While the average Pro Bowler may last 6 years, this isn't the vast majority of players, and 6 years is still a very short time to play a professional sport. An average NBA career is 4.5 years, and the average MLB career is 5.5 years. But keep in mind, both of those leagues offer fully guaranteed contracts. In contrast with the NFL, the only part of a contract that is guaranteed is the portion negotiated at signing. The rest is gained through years of continued top performance and games played. If a career is shortened by injury or a player can no longer compete at the same level, he will likely receive a smaller contract offer, or he won't be re-signed, or he can even be cut before the full length of the contract has expired with no additional compensation given. With that being said, it is in a player's best interest to maximize his earning potential at the height of his ability, skills, and popularity. Should a player 3 years into a 4-year deal ask to be paid if he is a top performer on the team for those 3 years? Absolutely. Should he hold out if the team refuses to fairly compensate him for his contribution to the team? Absolutely. We think in terms of what we would do at our jobs if our bosses didn't offer us a pay raise after several years. But we also aren't risking our bodies and brains each time we step into our place of work. NFL players risk life-altering injuries every time they step onto a field. They should be fairly compensated for doing so, especially considering they have just a few years in which to do it. These owners are billionaires. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry. This isn't a struggling league. It is flush with capital, and many of the teams are the top grossing money-making franchise in all of sports, all of which comes on the backs of these players. It is only fair and right to pay your good players in the best years of their careers. Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank everyone again for listening and spreading the word of the podcast. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. You can also read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Thanks for listening, and see you back here next week.